Hello friends, my name is Amber. Welcome to a Lovely Yarn podcast. I am very excited about today's episode. I have put together 60 free patterns, knitting patterns, that I think would be great to make and give as gifts. And I realized, oh my goodness, it's the beginning of November. I have had this episode kind of in the back of my head for several weeks. And then when I realized last week that it was almost November, I thought I need to get this video filmed and uploaded, because if we are making gifts for Christmas, that's not even 2 months away. So we need to get started on those gifts. Now, of course, these patterns could be knitted for yourself. They could be knitted for birthday gifts, for anytime gifts, so it's just that this time of year, a lot of us knitters are thinking about gift knitting. And so I thought this would be a really great time to put out a list. Now, to be eligible for this podcast episode, I did have some criteria. First of all, I wanted smaller projects, so you're not going to see any sweaters or blankets or large shawls on this list of patterns, because with under 2 months until Christmas, we just really don't have time for that. Most of these patterns are also going to be made with a heavier weight yarn. There are a couple of fingering weight projects, but most of them are made with DK weight or heavier weight yarn, and that is simply because of time. The heavier the weight yarn, typically the faster your project goes. So that was another criteria. And then my last criteria was that I wanted to pull together a list of patterns that were absolutely free, at least at the time of me filming this. So I had a lot of fun putting this together. I have found quite a few patterns. I actually wish I would have done this earlier in the fall, because I would have had a little bit more time to make these things for people in my life. So realistically, I may be able to make 1 or 2 of these patterns for people whom I love and whom I normally gift things to. But I mean, I'm hoping that you guys can find some new to you patterns as well, and that you will feel inspired in your gift knitting. Now, if I have knitted this pattern previously, I actually am going to show you my sample that I have knit. Some of them I have knitted, I just don't have anymore. I don't even know if I have pictures. I'm a horrible historian when it comes to documenting my knits. I don't use Ravelry anymore, so I am just really horrible with that. And I do knit and gift a lot. So some of the things I don't have here anymore, but if I do still have it on hand, or if one of the other family members that lives in my home has it, I grabbed it off of them, and I will show you my version of it, as well as the picture up here, which I always do. I'll just post a picture here of the project, and that way you can see what the project looks like as I'm talking about it. Now, all of these, I'm going to be going through these rather quickly, because there are 60 knits. That is a lot, and neither you nor I have the time to sit here and talk in depth about 60 knits. So some of the things, probably the ones that I've knitted and I actually have here to show you, I may get into a little bit more detail on. The other ones, I'm just going to give like flyby, here it is, maybe this is what I like about it, but I'm not going to get into all the details of the pattern like I typically do with my special episodes, because I just don't have the time for that today. And honestly, all you have to do is go down into the video description, click on the link to the Ravelry bundle, and you can get all the details for all the patterns that I talk about here. So make sure you check down below if you want to see all the patterns in one place. I do not list them out separately. In the video description, I'm just going to put one link to Ravelry, and that'll take you right to the bundle. You can see all 60 patterns there. I think that's all. So I do want to say that if I haven't knitted one of these, I can't speak to the accuracy of the pattern, so just keep that in mind. And it's also important to remember that with free patterns, oftentimes they have not been test knitted or edited, like tech edited, so keep that in mind, that these designers who offer their patterns for free often don't want to pay to have people test knit or tech edit them if they're just offering it for free, which is so generous of them in my opinion. So I cannot speak to the accuracy of any of these patterns unless I've knitted them myself, and even then I can't tell you for sure, because honestly some of these I knitted years ago, so I'm not going to remember those details. I've divided this episode up into different categories as I normally do. We're going to talk about knits for the hands, knits for the head, knits for the feet. I'm going through my little list here. Knits for the neck, and then I also have some things that you can make for the home. Okay, first thing I want to talk about are knits for the hands. Up first, I have two rather plain, simple, fingerless mitts that you can make. Actually 4, but let's talk about the first 2. These require less yardage. The first one is the 75 yard Malabrigo fingerless mittens, and this pattern writer, Jean Stevenson, claims that you can knit a pair of these men's size. It's listed as men's size with 75 yarns of Malabrigo yarn worsted weight. And these are just a super simple ribbing with the stockinette part on your hand, and then finishing up with the ribbing on the top over the fingers. And then the next pattern that is actually looks very similar to this, but it's knitted with DK weight yarn. This is called the Cozy Hand Warmers by Emily Baldwin, and she very generously provided 4 different sizes from child to large adult, it looks like. And again, this is cute because you can, I think it's cute, you can change out the color. Like if you would make these for your family, you can change out the color so everybody has their own color. Because, you know, in my house, all of our mittens, hats, and scarves go into 2 drawers in the entryway, and things, we all kind of wear each other's stuff. We don't mind, but if you have children who mind that, it would be nice for everybody to have their own color-coded fingerless mitts. The next 2 patterns are very similar. The only difference in them that I can see by looking is the weight of yarn that they're made with. The first one is called the Point Edwards mitts, and this, I think both of these patterns would look great in variegated yarn if you have any variegated yarn laying around that you want to use. But the Prince Edwards mitts uses DK, and then the Cozy Cuffed Mitts uses a worsted weight yarn. I really like, if you look at the sample photo for the Cozy Cuffed Mitts, I love the yarn that they chose, and I'm wondering if that's like a Noro yarn. I don't know. It looks like it's one of the I'm not sure, but it's really beautiful. If you have a yarn that's like kind of stripy like that, that would be really pretty. I like that with both of these mittens, it looks like you can extend the ribbing above the body of the hand, just extend the ribbing. So you can fold it down, or you can leave it long if you need some extra warmth. Okay, moving on in the fingerless mitts, the next subcategory are textured mitts. And the first one is a cabled fingering weight yarn mitten. It's called Mitt Envy. I'm sorry, it's not a mitten, it's a fingerless, but it is cabled. So this would be great for using up, it doesn't use a full skein of fingering weight yarn, but if you have some special sock yarn laying around that you think somebody would really love, this would be a great pattern for that. And then we have the Cloudburst pattern, which is a beautiful lace motif on the front, and it also uses fingering weight yarn, specifically Ramafina PT2. I don't know what that is, but I think that if I were to knit these, the Knit Picks pellet, which is a more rustic fingering weight, would be a really nice fit for these. This next pattern is interesting. It has a very interesting motif on the front. It's like traveling. It's like it looks like a road, like a squiggly line, like a road. That's actually made using traveling twisted stitch is what they call it. And these use sport weight yarn. I feel like it's harder to find sport weight yarn. I don't know if it's harder or if it's just there's not many brands that make sport weight yarn. But for this one, the yarn that came to my mind was the Peyton's Croy yarn, which is supposed to be a sock weight yarn, but in my opinion, I find it to be definitely a sport weight, and I actually use that if I'm knitting socks that are sport weight socks. So I think that would be an awesome yarn choice for this. This next pair of mittens, in my opinion, would be a really nice pair of fingerless mitts for the men in your life. These are the Cozy Thermal Mitts. The motif is supposed to mimic thermal wear. It looks like a waffle stitch. She doesn't say that's what it is, but that's what it looks like. And these use worsted weight yarn. I think it's just one size. Yeah, it's just one size. But it's, I think that you could have a lot of fun with your yarn choices with this, and they just look really squishy and soft and cozy. Next up is a pair of fingerless mitts called the Pioneer Gloves. This is another fingering weight pattern, and it is, okay, I know what I liked about these. I like the ribbed stitch. I think ribbed stitch is really a good option to go with if you're nervous about a pair of gloves or socks or a hat fitting somebody, if you're afraid with the sizing, because ribbing stretches so much, but it also kind of like sucks in. So it's more flexible, I think, with sizing. And so that's why I included this pair on this list. I also like how the ribbing looks around the thumb gusset. Okay, the last pair, I actually knitted these. These are called the Paca Mittens, and they are knit with the sport weight yarn. They're color work, very easy color work. So let me put mine on. So this is an example of a project that I knit with the Peyton's Croix sock yarn, because that's what this, excuse the dirtiness, I don't know why I would choose this color yarn knowing myself, but you can tell these are mittens or fingerless mitts that I wear often because they're a little dirty. But this contrast is actually not Peyton's Croix. It is some yarn. It's like a Zauberball, but not. I forget the brand that I knit these in, but it's a yarn that color shifts as you go. And this was really fun because I didn't have to change out. These are all of these colors come from the same skein of yarn, so I'm not having to do like weaving a bunch of ends in at the end. So this pattern comes in 2 different sizes, and I think it's small and large, and I knit the small because I do have smaller hands. I may have extended this a bit because I like my wrists covered. When I have a coat on, I like it to be like down in. These were super fun to knit. I would definitely knit this pattern again. Now we're going to talk about mittens. The first pattern that I picked is a worsted weight cabled mitten, and this is called Cruiser by Kaylin Meyer. And it uses under 200 yards of worsted weight yarn. The pattern has 3 different sizes: adult, small, medium, and large. And yeah, I just really like that cable that runs down the front. It says that it has an afterthought thumb, which is going to be, I guess, cutting into your knitting. Okay, this next pattern is fun because if you've been here for a while, you know that I love color work so much. This pattern is called Mittens to Order by Diane Mulholland, and it knits up in fingering weight, but I'm gonna say like a pellet or a more rustic fingering weight, not a superwash sock yarn like I have here. I would definitely knit these with like Knit Picks pellet or another sock yarn that is stickier and more rustic, because it is color work and it just fills in the spaces nicer when you use a more rustic yarn. This comes in size small and medium and then large. So I think it's like small, medium together and then large. So 2 different sizes, and it takes under 300 yards depending on which size you end up knitting. Okay, then we've got a more, these look a bit easier. These color work mitts are a bit easier if you're feeling a little bit intimidated by that full all over color work on the last mittens that I showed you. These are called the Kira mittens, and they use worsted weight yarn under 175 yards. They come in 2 different sizes, medium and large, and you basically just have the color work right here in the middle. So you have one solid color here, you have a little bit of color work there, and then you switch to your second color for the tip of your thumb. And I thought those were really fun, and if you wanted to make a special pair of beautiful color work mittens for someone that you love, but you didn't want to get into the all over color work, I thought this was a good option for that. Okay, next I have another cabled pair of gloves. These are the Tilda mittens by Inese Singh, And these are knitted in bulky weight yarn, one size for this pattern. They're just really beautiful, just beautiful cable that runs down the front. The Warmest Mittens is the next mitten pattern, and this is a really simple, straightforward, very basic stockinette mitten. If you just want to pump out some mittens for your loved ones, it is knit in Aran weight yarn. The suggested yarn though that they give is Peace Fleece worsted weight, which I have knit with, and I would definitely call it more of an Aran than a true worsted weight. So yeah, and I think that Peace Fleece would actually make a really great mitten yarn because it is so rustic and durable. So this comes in just one size, uses 200 yards of yarn, but again, you could probably adjust this a bit if you're comfortable with that. Okay, and the last mitten that I want to share with you, I actually have made myself, and they are looking worse for the wear because I wear them all winter long. These are just basic thrummed mittens, and this particular pattern that I'm sharing, I don't even think this is the pattern I used, but I couldn't find the pattern I used, although my gloves do look a lot like the ones that are in on the project page. These are knit using worsted weight yarn and then fiber, like wool fiber, any kind of wool fiber basically. It just has to be the loose fiber that you can pull out drafts of and knit in as you go. It might sound complicated, but it is not complicated. So the reason I knit these for myself is because I always have had such a hard time finding gloves that were warm enough for my hands. We live in Pennsylvania, so not as much anymore, but it used to be that we would have really cold winters. And even now, the winters are definitely cold enough that when I'm outside walking, which I do every day, I need warm gloves for my hands, or my hands they turn white, they hurt, they burn. So I need to keep my hands protected. I knit these 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember now. I think this was a Quince & Co yarn. Yes, it was Quince & Co Owl maybe. And then I just had, I have a bunch of fiber because I'm also a spinner. So I just pulled some undyed fiber. The inside of these gloves are crazy looking. They do kind of felt together, and that gives you an extra layer of warmth inside. And like I said, I did not actually use this particular pattern, but I couldn't find the pattern that I used. But this looks very similar to what I used. So I highly recommend this. If you or you know someone that lives in a climate where it gets really cold outside and they go outside in the cold, I think this would be a wonderful, very thoughtful, much appreciated gift. And as you wear them, like I said, the inside actually starts to fell and it forms like this thick armor against the cold and the wind. Can't even feel it go through. It's amazing. It's wonderful. One of the best inventions ever. Okay, let's move on to the head now. Some gifts that you can knit for people and they can wear on their head. The first one is a hat that I knit. I think this might have been one of the very first colorwork projects I ever did, and this is called the Basic Norwegian Star Hat. Yes. I love this hat so much. Let me see. It is knit with Aran weight yarn, and there's not much information about it, and it's been a really long time since I've knit it, but I think it's just one size. I used what was it called? Lamb's wool? Stand by. Okay. Lamb's Pride worsted. I have a bunch of this that I bought one year when we were in Maine. There's a yarn store in Bar Harbor, and she had a bunch of this marked down, so I bought a bunch of different colors, and I used this brand in different colors for this hat. This hat is so warm because it has the color work, so you have more layers. And it's just incredibly cute. I love it. I actually had made it for myself and my husband stole it off of me. But it's okay because I love that he loves to wear things that I knit. But I would highly recommend this pattern. It's fun. It's gorgeous. If you give this to someone, they're going to be like, wow, they're going to be super impressed. So yes, great pattern. And look at, I always like to show the top because I think it's so pretty. It's like all swirly looking. The next hat that I chose for this list is another colorwork hat, but this is actually more of a mosaic. She doesn't actually say it's yes, she does. I just looked. I missed it the first time. This pattern is called the Jelka by Isabel Kramer, and it is knit in worsted weight yarn. She uses the Retrosaria Rosa Palmar Brusca, and but I think, again, you could use this as well. Let me see if there's anything else here. Yeah, so if you're interested in trying color work, but you don't want to do stranded color work, like this is stranded color work, you could do this hat, and it's mosaic, which means you're just slipping stitches. So you're never holding more than one strand of yarn at a time. You're working with just one strand. So, okay, the next several hats are actually cabled hats, and I think I have a couple of them here. So the first hat is called Jason's Cashmere Hat, and this is a really beautiful, I remember this might have been my very first cabled project, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this pattern is for free. But it is knit using Aran weight yarn. You need 200 yards. The pattern is written for one size. Let me dig in my knitting. Here we go. Let me find the one that I made. Yeah, so here it is. Now, because it was my first cabling, or one of my first cabling projects, I did mess up somewhere in the crown decreases. And I don't know, can you see over here? Some of my cables have disappeared. I was doing good in the body of the hat, and then I got to the top, and it just kind of went downhill from there, but that's okay. This is a really great hat. It has the cable, and I knit it without a folded brim, and it must have been, I don't even know what this yarn is, to be honest. It looks more like a worsted weight than an Aran weight, and I'm kind of thinking maybe it was a Malabrigo Rios of some kind. But again, because I'm such a horrible historian when it comes to record keeping with my knitting projects, I don't know what I knit this out of. But I must not have had enough to do the folded brim, because normally I always do at least a double folded brim, because if I'm going to wear a hat in the winter here, I want it to keep my ears warm. The next cabled hat is a little bit different, and this is the Antler Toque. This is a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. This is knit in worsted weight yarn, and there's not really a whole lot to say. It looks like they knit the brim long enough to flip it up. I would definitely knit this. In fact, I was going to knit this last winter, and then I picked a different hat, which I'm going to show you. But one of the things that's really beautiful about this hat, first of all, the cable is different looking, and I like it. It's like a longer cable, but if you look at the crown decreases, it's beautiful. It like makes this really pretty flowery star-like thing. This next cabled hat is quite different. I have not really seen cables like this, but this is called the Portland Cap, and I chose it primarily because it is a different cabled look, but it is a one size. It's made with Aran weight. They use Blue Sky Fibers wool stock tweed, and it uses 109 yards on a US 10 needle. The last cabled pattern I have featured here is called the Tilda hat, and this pattern for this hat actually goes along with the Tilda mittens that I talked about in the hands section. So this is another pattern by Inese Singh, and it is a one size pattern knit with bulky weight yarn, uses about 150 yards, and yeah, just a cute, simple looking cabled hat with a pom-pom on the top. Okay, this next hat is called the Toward North hat, and this is a pattern that I actually knit last year. This is an Aran weight yarn. It calls for Aran weight yarn, about 120 to 164 yards. It's a one size pattern, but she said it's easily adjustable, and it has a really beautiful Latvian braid. It's called I think it's called a Vikul braid. And then let me show you mine so you can see. These little ridges here are all formed from slipping stitches. Also, the brim is double thick. I think that was part of the pattern. I don't think that I just did that, but then again, I don't know, because I did not. Let me see if it says. Yeah, I don't think it says. Okay, so I'm not sure, but either way, you can make a double thick brim and attach it, but maybe that's what the pattern says to do. It's been since last winter, so I do not remember. I knit this in yarn, farm yarn, from my friend Jody of Flower Hill Fleeces. I can't remember which particular type this is, but it is beautiful, super warm. Oh yeah, it's like a hug for your head. And it's just a beautiful pattern and a beautiful hat, made even more special because literally the sheep that this yarn was made out of live about 2 miles down the road from me. Okay, if you want to knit a brioche hat, I found a free pattern for a brioche hat. I am actually currently knitting a brioche hat that it is a paid for pattern that I'm using a worsted weight yarn, but this pattern calls for DK weight. You need 2 different colors. I really love brioche. It is a little bit more time consuming because you're knitting the same round. In the case of knitting circular, you're knitting the same round twice because you're knitting it with one color and then the next color, but it does give a nice squishy finished fabric and it looks really fun. And typically brioche can be reversible because you're just seeing the different colors in a different way on each side. I don't know that this pattern is reversible. I don't read here that it is, but I feel like it would. Yeah, no, it is. It is. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, this pattern needs under 300 yards of yarn, the DK weight, and it's written for 3 different sizes: youth, adult small, and adult large. The next 3 hats are pretty basic hats. The go-to watch cap is the first one. This is knit in worsted weight. They used Madeline Tosh Vintage. This is a nice basic ribbed brim with a stockinette crown. If you want an all-over ribbed hat, that's a free pattern. I found this pattern called the Tree Planter Toque by Erin Trolley, and it is knit with worsted weight yarn. They suggest Malabrigo Rios, which I've used that yarn for multiple projects. That's a great superwash yarn and it's very soft, so that might be something to consider when you're knitting for other people. They also recommend Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which would not be a superwash yarn, so you may want to be careful with that if you're gifting this to someone. If you are really in a crunch for time and you need a hat that you can whip out in an evening, may I suggest the boyfriend hat. This hat uses a bulky weight yarn. The gauge is 12 stitches to 4 inches. It is knit on size 11 needles, US needles, and one size uses 90 yards of yarn. This hat would probably, you could whip this out so quickly. It's just ribbed, and it's a 3x2 ribbing, and then it has the whole way 3x2 ribbing, and then decreases for your crown, and then you can make it longer to do the whole fold up brim or whatever. But I think this would be a really good one just to have on your list of patterns if you need a last minute gift. I have 4 headbands up next for you. I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly. I've actually made 2 of them, so let me grab the first one. The first pattern is called the Trading Post Headband, and it is a color work headband. Beautiful. I knit this out of Peyton's worsted. Yeah, Peyton's worsted yarn. I'll put it on for you. It's nice and wide, so it covers a good portion of your head as well as your ear. I find it stays on pretty good. You know, with a headband that you wear like this, you always get like the hair that kind of puffs up in the back a little bit, but this stays on pretty good, and I think it's because it's maybe a little bit tighter from the color work. But isn't that so pretty? And you could just have so much fun with choosing different colors for this. You could just have so much fun. I just stuck with the basic because my daughter and I both wear this, and she is typically more neutrals. I'm more neutrals too. This just goes with pretty much everything. So I stuck with brown and off-white. But this was really fun to make and super quick. Another super quick gift knit. This next headband is called the Frida headband. I have made at least 2 of these. I have 2 of them here, but I may have made more of them for gifts. And these were both made for my daughter, And actually this one was made for me and my daughter stole it, but it's okay. She does that a lot, but she loves my knitting and I love that she loves my knitting. And then this one I made for her just so she could have a backup. And this calls for a DK weight yarn. I think the pattern does specifically call for a fingering weight plus a mohair. And that is what I did for both of these. And it gives you that beautiful halo. Let me show you how it looks. And you have this twist. So this is knit in the round as a tube. And then when you're all done, you go back and you kind of give it a twist. The cast on edge and the bound off edge, you twist it a certain way and then you stitch it shut. And that gives this really cool looking knot here on the top. But isn't this cute? It's so cute. I love it. And it is, wait, is this? No, this one's not knit. I'm sorry. Disregard what I said. This one is double knitting. This is made by double knitting. It is not knit in a tube, although you could do that. This is double knitting. So please disregard everything I said about knitting in a tube. I'm thinking of a different project. Still, very beautiful knit, and my daughter loves these, and she wears them all the time in the, like, starting in the fall. As soon as it starts getting cold, she starts wearing these headbands. This next headband is called the Wintergreen headband. I chose this one because it has cables. It's knitted with a super bulky yarn, so that means it's going to be super quick, but it uses a US size 10.5, and you only need about 65 yards of the yarn to make one of these. And it says that there is a matching set of mittens that you can make. I don't know if those are also free. I didn't check that out. But if you want a bulky, very quick to knit, cabled headband, this might be the pattern for you. Our last headband pattern is called the Grape Vine. This is knit using DK weight yarn. I just thought this was so cute and like dainty looking. I don't know that this is going to be a great, like this wouldn't be a super warm headband because it does have some lace in it, so there are some, it looks like eyelets, and so you're gonna have it open a little bit, but you know, not everyone lives in really cold climates, and even spring and fall this would be nice because it will give you a bit of some extra protection over your ears. But it has a lace panel in the middle, and then it's flanked by two identical 1x1 cables down the side. And it's knit flat, and then it is seamed together at the end, also in the same way that the Frida was, to give this knotted looking join. Okay, this is my last head pattern, but this pattern, I was like, this is just such a great idea. So how many of you are bicyclers? Like, how many of you ride your bicycles? Brad and I ride our bicycles, not so much in the cooler temperatures, but I do remember one trip that we took. We took a bike ride and it was in the high 30s, and I just remember my ears were screaming. I was in so much pain because my ears were so cold, and then I got a headache, and then my face was aching, and I just remember feeling so miserable. But when you're wearing a bike helmet, it's really hard to have a hat too on underneath your bike helmet. So when you're adding the bulk of a hat underneath a bike helmet, it can get tricky. And I just remember being so miserable on that bicycle trip until it warmed up later in the day and thinking I never want to go for a bicycle ride in cold weather like that again. I found this pattern. This is just so cool. It's called the bike helmet earmuffs. And it's basically earmuffs that are anchored to the straps of your bike helmet. Like, you feed the bike helmet straps down through these earmuffs. And so they're like right up against your ears, and then you can still snap, and everything is all right up here as far as the tightness of your helmet and everything. This is just such a great idea. It uses worsted weight yarn, and you only need 100 yards. So if you have somebody in your life who rides their bicycle a lot, I just feel like this would be much appreciated. And it has, you know, I looked at the projects and there are 683, which is a decent amount. I thought, well, that's way more than I expected for something so unique like this. I just feel like this pattern could easily get lost in all the other patterns on Ravelry, and I never even knew such a thing existed until last week when I found this. So if you have somebody who rides their bike a lot, this might be a really unique and much appreciated gift for them. We're going to move into the neck category now. So the first one is called the Straightforward Cowl, and this is knit with worsted weight yarn. It's knitted sideways, so it looks to me like you knit it as you would a scarf. So you're knitting like a long rectangle, and then when you get to a certain length, you're going to stop, and then you seam it together somehow that it looks like it makes like a bandana type cowl. And then it also has some I-cord edging along, which is, in my opinion, always a nice finished look. This next pattern I have knitted, but I cannot find it anywhere. And I remember after I knit it, I thought, oh, this particular person in my life would probably really love this. So I'm wondering if I gifted it to that particular person, because I don't remember giving it to her, but I cannot find it. I've looked through all my knitting and I just have no idea where it is. But this is called the Bandana Cowl. This is a Pearl Soho pattern. I knit this using Drops Air, which is the blown yarn from Drops that I've knit multiple things in. Super soft. It's a good yarn. In my opinion, it's a good yarn to knit things for other people because it's superwash. It's got a blend of like some sort of wool, alpaca, some sort of I think maybe polyamide, but it's really soft. It's not itchy, and I don't know. My daughter tolerates it well, and she's extremely sensitive to fibers. But that's what I knitted in, and I really liked it in that yarn, but I cannot find it, so I may have given it to someone. But it is knit in an Aran weight yarn, and it's knit in the round. It's super easy to knit, and it's you can just tuck it down into your coat. Yeah, really good knit, and it's like really fast to knit as well because it's knit in Aran weight, and it's not a really huge cowl either. Okay, up next is the Flying Solo. Now, this is what some people call like a dicky, or what else have they been called? I feel like I remember my mom calling this certain type of garment. It's not really a garment, but I know that she would call this a dicky, but it's basically like you've got this stuff around your neck, like a turtleneck type thing, and then it comes down. You have a panel that comes down the front and a panel comes down the back. And I actually have two of these different styles of these dickies listed on here. So this first one, as I said, is Flying Solo. I think this is a pattern by Espas Tricot. Let me look here real quick. Yeah. And it uses fingering weight yarn that you're always holding two strands of fingering weight yarn together, but they knit it using 3 different colors of fingering weight yarn, and you're changing one color strand at a time. So it gives like a color shifting look, which I think you could have so much fun with. They did it in a very neutral palette for their sample photo, but if you have like, I mean, I've got some really beautiful fingering weight yarn. I think you could have so much fun with that, or even use up your scraps, you know, your mini skeins of fingering weight to make that. But yeah, I think that would be a really fun one. The other dicky is called the Merendera Neck Warmer. And let me get it pulled up here because I can't remember everything I wanted to say about it. But it's the same style where you have the turtleneck. This one looks a little bit more tight around the neck than the Flying Solo one did. And then you've got the 2 panels, one down the front, one down the back. This one has some pretty ribbing along, pretty ribbing detail on it. And it is knit with a DK weight yarn. You need under 400 yards for this particular project. Up next is the Frost at Dawn Cowl, and this uses worsted weight yarn, and again, it's another bandana style. It comes to a peak. I just think that cowls that are bandana shaped, that have that triangular shape in the front, are just really nice because you can tuck them into your coat or your jacket. You need like under 400 yards. She's saying 300 to 360 yards of worsted weight yarn. And it's, yeah, this is like a good unisex cowl. I think you could go either way for this. And she put a little tassel on hers, which is really cute, or you could leave that off too. The next two cowls that I chose are colorwork cowls because you know how much I love colorwork cowls. They are both knit in the round, and the first one is called the Illusion Squared, and I actually knit this one last winter, I think. So here's my version. I knit this in Peyton's Croy worsted, so I didn't use Aran weight, so it is probably a bit tighter than hers is, but let me pull this on for you. I actually prefer a tighter cowl because it keeps my neck warmer. And this Peyton's Croy is a nice, warm, very durable. I'm sorry, it's not Peyton's Croy, it's Peyton's worsted. It's a really nice, durable yarn. More like a workhorse. More like a workhorse. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying that. Workhorse yarn. But yeah, anyway, I need to take this off because it's making me sweat. But there's this one, again, DK weight, or I'm sorry, Aran weight yarn. And then the next one is called the Fair Enough Cowl. And this is another color work. This color work on this particular one is more varied. There is more designs and shapes that take place. You need like under 110 yards of yarn for this one. And it is knit using a DK weight yarn. Next we have this berry scarf. This is your traditional bow tie scarf. I think that's what it's called, right? Bow tie? Yeah, a bow tie. Comes in 2 different sizes, child size as well as adult. This is really cute. I personally I don't think I would wear something like this. This isn't my style, but I know that there are a lot of people that do like the look of this. And this one in particular is really cute because it has those little baubles that are supposed to be berries. It uses worsted weight yarn, 200 yards and under, and they used Madeline Tosh Vintage as their pattern for their pattern sample. The last one that I have included in the neck portion of this is an Italian summer scarf, and I know it's called summer scarf, and you could make it as a summer scarf. In fact, I made this summer, and I made it in Quince & Co. Something. I cannot, is it Willet? It's a cotton yarn. This is made in cotton yarn, and it has eyelets, okay? So it is more of a cool, warm weather. It's more of a warm weather project. But if you switch it up and knit this in a wool yarn, like 100% wool or something with wool and alpaca, then it's going to be warmer. And I really like this because I think it's the perfect length for a smaller scarf. Look at how cute this is. This is super cute. Now this is made out of cotton, so it's gonna drape a little bit differently than one made out of wool. You know, if it's just wool, it might be a bit stiffer, but it's still the perfect length. The other nice thing about this scarf is it's knit from tip to tip. So the way I knit this is I weighed my yarn, and then I kept weighing it as I knit, and when I got to a little bit before half of my yarn being used up, a little less than half, I knew I needed to start decreasing. So then I did my decreasing, so that way I could use up almost all of my yarn. I only had a little tiny bit left. I didn't want to push it and then run out at the very end, so I did give myself a bit of a cushion there when I was weighing it. But yeah, this is also a super fast knit, and so I would highly recommend this if you want to gift somebody something that's more like a shawl. This is called a scarf, and I would definitely call it a scarf as well, but it's not like your plain long rectangular shaped scarf. This is a little bit more leveled up, but without being a full-blown shawl, because I personally only know a handful of people, and it's a very small handful of people, like hardly any, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, in real life who actually wear shawls like me. So, but scarves, this I can see a lot of different people wearing because you can wear it as a scarf. Okay, we're moving into the feet portion, and this next pattern, this first sock pattern, is the only sock pattern that uses fingering weight yarn, but I'm going to show you because where are mine? I have like several. I'm going to talk to you and then I'm going to look. It is the only sock pattern that uses fingering weight yarn, but I know so many of us use fingering weight yarn for socks, and so many of us have that laying around. So if you're looking for a fingering weight sock pattern that is free and that is beautiful and that is squishy and cozy and is going to make somebody's feet really warm and happy, then I would highly suggest this pattern. I've talked about it on my regular episodes before. It's called the Hermione's Everyday Socks. I can't even tell you how many of these socks I've made for people over the years. And I have 2 pairs that I pulled out of my sock drawer that I cannot find. Here they are. Here they are. I found them. Okay, so keep in mind, mine are like well worn because I've had both of these pairs for probably 4+ years. But here is the first pair, and I'm just showing you like that beautiful, very effective stitch pattern. It's super easy. It's so easy to memorize. You don't need to look at the pattern. But isn't that pretty? And I'm pretty sure the pattern, let me look real quick. I think you can, it comes in different sizes. Oh, it just says women's medium, but you can figure out, you can do a little bit of math and just figure out using the stitch repeat. If you want to make it bigger, use more cast on stitches. But yeah, really good sock pattern. Have made so many of these as gifts. The next 4 sock patterns I'm going to go through super quickly because they all use DK weight yarn. So the first 2 are very basic. The first pattern is called the Spree socks. This comes in 3 different patterns, small through large, 3 different sizes, sorry. And yeah, they're a shorter. And again, you know, any sock, you can just make your cuff shorter. But these are designed to be shorter. And then the next pair is a pattern by Crazy Sock Lady Designs. And this is the DK Weight Vanilla sock. It's always nice. It's gotten to be a more popular thing to knit socks with DK weight yarn, and they are so fast to knit. So that's why I wanted to include so many DK weight sock patterns in this list. And this is just your basic vanilla sock pattern that comes in 3 different sizes. Then we've got the Rye DK version by Tin Can Knits. I have knit the fingering weight Rye version from them, and this is such a nice pattern. It's also very simple, but it just gives a little bit of variation to the regular stockinette. And so this, as most Tin Can Knit patterns, this has a lot of sizes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like 8 or 9 sizes from newborn up to adult large. And then the last DK weight sock pattern is called the Slow Morning DK by Camille Hang. And this is a ribbed sock pattern. And again, I already talked about why I like ribbed patterns. Okay, this last pattern is another Tin Can Knits, and it's the Rye worsted version. So I thought what would be really fun for this is if you would hold a DK weight yarn, just like a plain solid color, and then take a strand of your sock yarn and kind of like marl it, do a marled pair of socks. Okay, and then the last thing for the feet is a pattern by Temple of Knit called Simple House Slippers. Now I need to say up front, you have to go to their website to get the free version of this. The pattern that is on Ravelry is a paid for pattern because she revised it to include 3 sizes. I have never used the paid for. I got the free pattern a long time ago. I have it printed out. I always refer to that. I find it is super easy to adjust the fit because of how these are made. They're really easy. I have a pair right here. So these are, I've made these for gifts a lot. As you can see, this is made with worsted weight yarn that does not have any nylon in it. So it's starting to wear out there, but I think what I'm gonna do for the next pair I make is hold fingering weight scraps triple or maybe quadruple. I don't know how I would need to do that, and just make a really fun colorful pair of these, and that way they'll have the nylon in them, so they'll hopefully be more durable. But these are so cute. They're so fast to make. They are made with a worsted weight yarn. This is how This is how it's supposed to look. But they're knit flat with this garter ridge, and then you join in the round, and the rest of them are knit in the round. And see, I just adjust the length of the foot to account for different foot sizes. I don't worry about needing a pattern that tells me 3 different sizes. So, but again, if you want the free version, you have to go to their website, which is included. There's a link on the Ravelry project page. Okay, I forgot. I thought that was my last foot pattern, but actually the last pattern is the non-felted slippers. These are really cute. I've never made them, but they're knit using super bulky, so they would probably be really, really fast. And I think these would look really good in a more rustic yarn. You only need about 100 yards of yarn of the super bulky yarn to make these, and they look like they're maybe a little bit more structured than the simple house slippers. So check those out for another possible slipper version. Okay, I have like a random pattern that didn't fit in any category. I could have put it in the head category, but it's more like it needed its own category. It's a hair scrunchie. It's a free pattern by Tori Yu. It's called the Soho Scrunchie. Gauge is not important. You can use any gauge of yarn. You just have to, take that into account when you're trying to figure out what size you want your scrunchie to be. But she includes instructions for 3 different sizes of a scrunchie, mini through jumbo. And it's just really cute. I think one of her sample pages or pictures, it looks like she maybe used a fingering weight and a mohair, and I think that looks really pretty. I don't wear scrunchies, but my daughter does, and my daughter-in-law, so I think these would make really nice quick gifts. So this is my last category. We're going to go through these pretty fast. These are all free patterns that you can gift for the home. The first pattern are these super cute folksy hot pads. I have had this chart, this colorwork chart, printed off for a while. It's been just sitting there waiting for me. I have not knit them yet, but it uses a worsted weight yarn, and you would have to be careful. I mean, I would use a cotton because you're going to be putting hot stuff on this. Unless you just want to use them for kitchen decor, which you could totally do. But there's 2 different sizes, large and medium, and these are just so stinking cute. They remind me of a quilt, which is, I think, the whole purpose of them, like a quilt block, and I love all things quilted and quilt blocks and all of that. So these would look perfect in my home, and yeah, just really like these, and I've been wanting to make myself some of these for a while. Next up, we have the double thick pot holder by Pearl Soho. I actually made myself one. It is a mess. Look at the stains because this baby gets used. But it's double thick. It's constructed in such a way that it folds in on itself when you seam it, and it's got the little loops. So I just let this hang on the side of my refrigerator, and I use it all the time, which is why it is stained, but I really like this. I think this would make a cute, like if you made a couple of these and maybe some dishcloths, which I'm also going to talk about here in a minute. I think this would make a great gift. Okay, up next is a dishcloth called Dishcloth for Dad. Again, this is another one of those patterns that I have made so many of them that I have lost count. And I've been making them more as coasters than dishcloths. So I have them set throughout my house. I also have given them as gifts. These 2 are candle coasters. I just use them. This is a hand spun yarn that I had won the fiber for, and then I spun up, and then I made a bunch of these. I think I got 4 or 5 of these out of what I spun up, and I use them under my candles and under my plants. And let me just show you. So these are done. You get this like pinwheel type. It's not a pinwheel. You get the circular shape by doing short rows. It's not hard at all. And they go really fast, and they're really fun to make, and they're fun to give as gifts. Okay, this next kitchen gift is a Farmhouse dish towel. This is a pattern by Pearl Soho. I love Pearl Soho's kitchen patterns, and I love their cotton yarn, and I think maybe someday I will splurge and buy their cotton yarn. It's just that I use the cheap stuff that I can get at Michael's, and I have a pretty large stash of it, so I can't quite justify buying the Pearl Soho cotton, although every time I get a sell email from them, I think, oh, I I should give myself some cotton from them. But I have not pulled the trigger on that yet. But I think these dish towels are really cute. I don't know. They're nostalgic looking to me for some reason. I'm not sure why. But I like the color stripes in it. And I believe this dish towel is like the texture in it is made by Slipping Stitches. So they look like they would be a nice gift to give. One more pot holder, another Pearl Soho. See, I love Pearl Soho's kitchen goods. They're kitchen patterns. This is called the Sunburst pot holder. This is so fun. I think if you know someone that loves retro, like retro home decor, kitchen decor, this would be a fun pattern to make for them. Make them like a stack of these. This is a pot holder, but I think you could maybe adjust the pattern to make coasters as well if you didn't want the size to be so big. But yeah, again, I think the shaping is done by using short rows, and the colors that Pearl Soho has for their cotton are so fun. The colors are so beautiful as well. This next pattern is maybe a good one for somebody who's a little bit more eco-conscious in your life. And this is the Sock Yarn Mug Cozy. It's just basically a mug cozy made out of fingering weight yarn. So it would be great for using up those scraps. And instead of, if they're making their stop at a coffee shop, instead of using the paper sleeve that you often get, they can just have this in their car or purse and slip on this wool sleeve, and they've can reuse this. So that does make it a little bit more eco-conscious. Plus, it just probably would feel cozier, and it definitely looks prettier. 4 patterns left. I'm getting tired, guys. But I've got 4 patterns, so let's get through these because they're also good ones. This next one is called Chloe's Cushions, and this is a pattern by Yamagara, and it was designed to use her Nutiden yarn, but I think it's knit in the round. Yes, it is. It's knit in the round. These are little colorwork cushions. Now, how I would imagine using these is to make little lavender sachets. So knit the cushion, stuff it with some wool as well as lavender that I have dried and saved from my lavender bushes in the summer. And I think that would make a nice little gift to give somebody to tuck in their knitting bag or in their clothing drawers, wherever they want to put one, to have that beautiful smell of lavender. But actually the designer, I think she mentioned that she had made one into a pincushion, which would be also a really great idea if you have a friend who is a sewist. I don't know, you just have to Google what you put inside a pincushion, but you could make a pincushion out of this. So I think there's several things you could do, and they're just so cute. If you're looking for a fun and whimsical gift, I've got you covered. This is called Poppy the Chicken. And I know that the, what was that chicken called? The one everybody was making for the summer. I can't even think. It's completely slipped my mind. But it was a big chicken. And I thought it was super cute. And I actually considered making one. And then I was just like, I don't have time to make that right now. But this is a little bit more doable because it's made out of a super bulky. It's actually the designer made it using Lion brand Woolies Thick and Quick. And it looks like it's less seaming. And it's a bit smaller. And it's really cute. I think it would look cute in a farmhouse kitchen. Or you could just give it to a little youngster in your life who you thought would get a kick out of this. But it's definitely more of a whimsical gift. And it's definitely one that I wouldn't mind receiving myself. So I'm including it on my list. The last 2 patterns are water bottle covers. I want to show you my water bottle cover. Now, this pattern is not included on this list because it is a paid for pattern. This is the, oh my goodness. This is the pattern. I'll have to include it down below, but this is by Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits. I test knitted this last winter, and I used my water bottle a lot. Not in the summer, but in the winter when it's cold, I take it to bed with me. It's my buddy. So I do like this pattern, but you do have to pay for it. I will link this pattern down below, but it's not included on the free list. But I do have 2 patterns that are free, and I've actually already bought empty water bottles because I have a couple of people in mind that I would hopefully like to make them water bottle covers for and give them the water bottle as well. And the first pattern that I found was called Warm Greetings. This is a worsted weight cabled pattern. It's knit in the round. I think it's really classic, cozy looking, and so this would be a really good option. And then the other one that I found is just called the Hot Water Bottle Cover, and it is knit in DK weight yarn. And what I was thinking with this is I have DK weight yarn that I could knit this in, but I could also make this really fun and colorful and stripy and hold 2 skeins of fingering weight together, like my scraps, and or hold like a solid fingering weight with, and then vary my minis that I add in to make like a stripy marled fun looking hot water bottle cover. But yeah, I find hot water bottles so nice. I feel like I always remember having a hot water bottle. Like growing up, I remember my mom having them, and I just didn't realize that a lot of American homes do not have hot water bottles. And I think it was actually Laura Penrose that I was watching, and she had said about that a lot of her American viewers were like, what is that? What do you use that for? And I was very surprised at that. I always remember having a hot water bottle, and like when I was sick and stuff, you know, you use it because it really warms you up. But apparently a lot of American homes do not have hot water bottles in their homes. So I, though, love mine. My husband picks on me because I take it to bed with me every night in the winter, but it's just so cozy and warm, and it's like I just hug it. I hug it all night until I get too hot, and then I have to throw my covers off. But yeah, anyway, hot water bottle cover, in my opinion, would be a wonderful gift. But if you're making it for someone in America, you might actually need to include the hot water bottle, because apparently not Americans have those in their home. All right, guys, this was a really long episode, so thank you for hanging in there if you did. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some inspiration and maybe even a couple of gifts that you could make for your loved ones this coming holiday season. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you all. You can see everything down below. That is where the links are. If you like this video, please consider liking it, and if you have not already subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to do that. And I wish you all happy knitting, and I will see you next time.